using passive monitors to reduce guest complaints about the common bedbug in the hospitality industry. A repeat of the presentation I gave at ICUP 2025 in Lund, Sweden. I'm David Cain, the founder and managing director of Bedbugs Limited, which started in 2005 as a public information site. I'm actually a qualified molecular biologist with experience in research and business development. We decided that focusing on one pest in a multitude of environments was probably the right strategy. In 2009 I invented the Bedbug Passive Monitor, and in 2014 we became a completely green company. Our approach is to use an integrated set of resources based on training, monitoring and policies that help organisations identify issues, ideally before guests do. Since 2009 we've been working with the hospitality industry to deliver a zero tolerance policy as far as bedbugs are concerned, that reduce guest incidents, lower operational stress, and it's all based on our patented methods and technology. In 2014 we switched to a completely green strategy based on the superheated steam disinfector. We handle clients that are both local to us but also remote, literally at the other end of the country. Some of the clients are completely self-sufficient, while others we have a more supported role, either in checking the system or in providing the treatment. Basically, we tailor the solution to meet our clients' needs because it's incredibly modular. That's how it's been built. And we're capable of adapting that into everyone's organisation and make sure that it works with your current procedures. Some of you may recognise this slide from Advances in the Biology and Management of Modern Bedbugs, Chapter 36 on hotels. It gives you a good overview on how we work with a client. We start off by really understanding what's been going on to date, review the previous treatments, and understand the history of the site. We then investigate, doing a facility-wide screen, looking for bedbug activity. We then start the phase of reactive control where we start off eradicating the infestations that are present. We then start training the staff in a more proactive control strategy, giving them the support and tools needed to really get ahead of the problem. And finally, we provide a quality assurance service to make sure everything's done correct. In essence, this can result in a simple process flow, although this may look a little bit complex to start off with. As I walk you through it, the weekly screen is done by the housekeepers or people who are going into the room on a daily basis. They only need to check 2 to 4 rooms a day. They record it on the monitor and it returns to the next week's checking. In the meantime, someone from the housekeeping supervisor level will be checking those monitors on a monthly basis, again 2 to 4 per day, recording that there's no activity and returning back to the next month. If there is suspected activity, then a simple one-page report is used to fill that in and report it to maintenance, whoever is responsible. They will then come into the room and assess it. A grade 1 infestation is as simple as removing the monitor, cleaning the room with a vacuum cleaner, and getting on with the day as normal. Grade 2 may be a little bit more advanced, a little bit more attention to detail, and the grade 3 rooms only really happen when the system broke down. What enables this is our unique passive monitoring technology. It's a harborage-based monitor which utilises bedbugs' natural behaviour to seek the optimal harbourage as close to food as possible. Now in our case, the design induces them to stop and defecate on the detection plate, so if you see fecal traces on the detection skirt, you know that there's a problem. And as many other people have said from their research, it's the fecal traces that are the most attractive thing to bedbugs. So they're not only indicating that this is the perfect and safe home, but they're also inducing others to come and explore it as well. When checked weekly, that's the optimal checking interval on a high turnaround location for a number of reasons I'll come on to shortly. So we picked 4 sites. Sites A and B were both academic halls of residence, which also operated as short-term rentable accommodation out of term time. Site B had something of a legacy issue with bedbugs, and at one stage it was believed to be as much as 85% infested. Site C, a more traditional hotel, 340 rooms, equivalent to a 4-star. They did all of the checking themselves, did all the QC themselves, and initially we went in and treated on their behalf, but in recent years we've trained their maintenance team to fix the problem themselves. And finally, Site D is a small family-run establishment, kind of ideal because not a lot changes in this kind of hotel. So let me show you the data. So this is the results. Basically, we logged every encounter with bedbugs per site over the next 12 years. As you can see, the vast majority of them had very low levels of activity. Site B, the one with the legacy issue, that took a while to resolve, but it had been ingrained into the building. But moving forward, as you can see, no one experienced significant problems. When you map that out and start looking at it as adjusted by the number of rooms, you see that the background levels of infestation were never actually achieved, and in fact in most of the cases dropped so statistically significant that you can see the impact of the system pretty much from year one. The only exception to this was a peak in Site C, which occurred in 2019 to 2020, but I'll talk about that specifically on one of the next slides. So these are the results that we were seeing. Depending on the number of bedbugs that were introduced or how long they'd been present before the detection, there was always a number of fecal traces on the detection skirt. The heavier the number, the greater the infestation, or the longer it had gone undetected. One of the interesting things is that we also realized partway through that the relief of these dots can actually be used to teach the visually impaired to detect bedbugs as well. Now, all of these monitors that were taken out, some of them had pictures taken. We've compiled them into a video. If you want to scan the QR code, that'll take you through so you can see that data. And it's all raw data. None of this comes out of labs. It's all coming out of the 4 sites. Other observations? Well, every site reported lower infestations than previous years. No infestations dispersed, meaning that eradication was a lot more efficient. When checked weekly, infestations were detected before eggs had time to hatch, therefore the colony never really started to establish and get to the point where there were enough bites to cause a complaint. Sites A and B showed 2 annual peaks of introduction, one in January-February, which was connected with the students, and one in August-September that was connected with the tourists. So this illustrated that it wasn't just tourists that were spreading the problem, but people who were staying more locally as well. And interestingly enough, following the first detection, compliance on the site remained incredibly high, even in the years where there were no bedbugs detected at all. So in conclusion, proactive detection is much more efficient than reactive control in terms of lower guest complaints. There were no guest complaints from traditional hotel guests across this period. Lower dispersal, there was no transmission between rooms or transference on sheets and bedding between rooms. Much faster eradication. We weren't closing rooms for anything other than a couple of hours. Each site maintained below their previous levels of activity, apart from Site C, and I said I'd explain what happened there. Because of Brexit, they lost so many staff that they were under such a work pressure that they decided to stop checking the monitors for about a 3-month period. And strangely enough, that's when introductions seem to occur. But also, rapid detection enables chemical-free control, rooms to be returned back into service that day, much greater operational efficiency because none of the rooms were locked out, lower carbon footprint in terms of detection and treatment compared to other systems, and on average 98% of the system was recycled or used again. So yes, planning will make reacting easier, but only proactive steps will enable you to really impact the incidents. So this is the further research we'd like to do. We'd obviously like to collaborate to create larger data sets with bigger establishments. We'd also like to do some more qualitative research in terms of the impact and stress of bedbugs on the working environment, both from a pest controller's perspective, but also from the hospitality industry. We'd also like to explore more of this quantum paradox effect, and that we specifically believe that when done correctly, passive monitoring actually reduces the potential of introduction of bedbugs into the environment. When places are going from 5 infestations in 40 rooms per year, and all of a sudden they're getting the equivalent of 0.0125 infestations per year, something's obviously there that needs to be looked at. We're also continuing to make strides and improvements with the company to make sure that our products and services are sustainable as possible. We have an aim to reach zero emissions rating for CO2 by the end of 2026, and we'll be registering as a B Corporation as soon as possible. I'd just like to acknowledge firstly my customers for their support and trust. At the end of the day, when we turned around and said we wanted to do something incredibly different, they were nervous to start off with, but the results have spoken for themselves. I'd like to thank my team and supporters for the help and support they've provided over the last 20 years, my family, and finally, thank you for listening to this presentation. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to contact us. We're more than happy to discuss bedbug problems.